Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I wish you an enjoyable listening experience. The book I'm introducing today is called Where Research Begins, with the subtitle, Choosing a Research Project That Matters to You. This book spans about 218 pages. To achieve results in anything, superficial knowledge won't suffice. We need to invest time in thorough research. Mastering research methods makes it easier to grasp the essence of problems, enhance work efficiency, and make informed decisions. However, engaging in research isn't easy. Take the case of a doctoral student specializing in research. It takes about 10 years from the undergraduate level to cultivate a research-savvy doctoral candidate. And to become an outstanding researcher producing influential research outcomes requires continuous dedication. Some may spend their entire lives without grasping the essentials of research. If seasoned researchers find research challenging, is there a way for the average person to acquire some research methods? Where Research Begins stands out as the most suitable research guide for the general public currently available. This book has two authors, one from Stanford University, Professor Thomas S. Mullaney, and the other from the University of British Columbia, Professor Christopher Wray. They've traversed the path to becoming professional researchers and have dedicated years to assisting more students in mastering research methods. Unlike other books on research methods, this book doesn't delve into how to conduct literature reviews, analyze data, or engage in scientific arguments. Because the most challenging part of conducting research begins long before initiating the study, it's about finding the right research project. Whether in natural sciences or humanities and social sciences, identifying a fitting research project is crucial and also the most challenging phase. Once this phase is overcome, subsequent steps become more manageable. In reality, not just in scientific research, but in entrepreneurship, investments, choosing majors for education, job hunting after graduation, or even finding an ideal partner, the principle remains the same. We often say, the choice is often more crucial than the effort. Specifically, the key starting point for any complex task is identifying the problem. In academic circles, we often term this as problem awareness or being problem-driven. Research gains significance with problem awareness. However, note that this significance isn't about filling long-standing research gaps or responding to new demands of the era with hollow slogans. The significance of research refers to identifying, from within oneself, those challenging issues that fascinate and inspire endless ideas. As the authors put it, only research centered around the self can be the best research, perhaps having meaningful impacts on others or society. There's a line in the preface of this book, "Don't ask what the world needs from you, ask what makes you come alive in the world." But achieving this is immensely challenging, requiring overcoming numerous hurdles. Following the roadmap provided by the authors, you need to first select a suitable topic for research, then transform this topic into a series of specific and compelling questions, and further identify the potential problems, prompting you to raise these questions. From topic to questions and then to problems, it's not finished yet. Next, you need to address the assumptions and biases in your mind, find research communities beyond your field, discover useful materials, and in the early stages, when confusion is most likely, overcome psychological barriers, maintaining the drive for research. It's essential to constantly exhibit the flexibility, wit, sensitivity, and vitality of a researcher. This set of skills might seem complex, but once mastered, it becomes a scarce resource no matter where you apply it. The authors specifically mention that all viewpoints and exercises in this book can be applied across various domains such as business, journalism, arts, design, engineering, community development, and entrepreneurship. Learning the fundamental methods of finding good projects or topics, regardless of your field or expertise level, can significantly amplify your efforts. In summary, to find excellent research projects, one must undergo 5 major steps: topic, questions, problems, projects, and integration into the community. Let's delve into these challenges specifically to understand how to master the essence of research and become someone with scarce resources. Part 1. Let's begin by discussing how to move from an interesting topic to specific questions and then uncover the core challenges driving those questions. This is a process of continuous self-exploration and a path toward becoming a self-centered researcher. At the initial stage of research, you only have a topic. This topic refers to your field. For instance, if your field is language and literature, it's vast, encompassing numerous options. You might say, my research topic is computational linguistics, creative writing, and so on. In essence, the role of a topic is to give you a sense of belonging and purpose. With a topic, your inner sense settles, and your direction becomes clear. However, topics can also be deceptive or hinder research. Consider when a researcher shares their topic of interest. Their mind might be teeming with ideas, but why is this topic worth researching? What potential questions should be researched? Which path should be chosen? Their thought process isn't clear. Consequently, a topic can't develop into a research project. In such cases, we often opt for the strategy of narrowing the research scope. But be aware, directly doing so leads to the narrowing scope trap. Narrow topics might seem easier to handle than broad ones, but with a smaller scope, the research pool diminishes, and inexperienced individuals might find themselves at a dead end. They know what research they want to conduct but can't answer why and how. Reflecting on our experiences, many tend to focus on what I want to do, but why and how are the real crux of the matter. For instance, one of the authors of this book, Melanie, a history professor at Stanford University, had a conversation with a student about their thesis topic. The student said, I want to research Chinese feng shui. The reason is that in feng shui, the terrain and natural environment possess active energy. This energy can positively or negatively influence one's fortune. By adhering to these energy principles in designing residences or cities, fortunes can be enhanced. Ignoring or violating these principles might lead to disasters. Initially sounding like a potentially fruitful and intriguing topic, Melanie remarked, I don't understand why you want to research this, and I'm unsure of your specific focus. This student was an excellent performer, well prepared before meeting the professor. So, they responded smoothly and confidently, saying, this question holds significance as feng shui offers a perspective on studying Chinese modernity, allowing an examination of knowledge production in China's transition from tradition to modernization. On hearing this explanation, one might easily be swayed, as it seemingly holds significant importance. However, Melanie pointed out that the student still hadn't answered why this research was necessary. If the goal is to understand Chinese modernity, studying feng shui isn't mandatory. They could opt to research educational reforms, the development of the chemical industry, or even the history of translating foreign works. There are countless methods to explore issues of modernity. The student continued to use intellectual-sounding reasoning to validate their choice. For instance, there are gaps in the literature, or there's an important area in our knowledge map yet to be filled. This attempt to communicate using correct academic language didn't work for Melanie. He didn't buy it, pointing out that claiming gaps in the literature assumes this topic's importance and the necessity for everyone's attention. But who exactly is it crucial for? Why is it important? Moreover, the world of human knowledge harbors countless gaps, so why must the feng shui gap be filled? At this point, you might think Melanie was being difficult with the student. What was he expecting in response? This brings us back to the importance of becoming a self-centered researcher. The student's answer didn't satisfy Melanie, not because the student lacked experience. Most researchers, even seasoned scholars, instinctively use terms like importance or significance to justify their potential research ideas. Remember back to our initial experiences defending our theses at school, did we not do the same? So, where's the issue? It lies in the fact that these terms are defined by a fictional external judge. At the preliminary stage of research, we don't need external judges. The questions we need to answer should be about personal topics. You might have potential interests in various topics, so why choose this one? What's your connection to this topic? Why does it attract you? After Melanie said this, the student visibly fell silent, experiencing a significant emotional shift. Their tone weakened, their body relaxed. Consequently, this conversation no longer felt like a performance where the student was trying to impress the professor. The exchange became more honest and open. The student said, "My mother is a lawyer, highly educated, and the most rational person I know. She's entirely unsuperstitious but firmly believes in feng shui. I can't understand it. Reflecting, when we initially chose thesis topics, there might have been a strange and incidental reason, unnoticed but crucial. Continuing with Mulaney's student, when he mentioned that his mother believes strongly in feng shui, several clear questions arose. A highly educated and rational mother believes in feng shui. What aspects does he consider something a rational person shouldn't believe in? Meditation, yoga, reflexology, psychiatry, economics. And who or what defines the boundaries between rational and irrational? Is this definition consistent worldwide? Are there other reasons indicating a mismatch between feng shui and rationality? Despite being numerous, these questions all relate to the student's initial assumption that a rational person shouldn't believe in feng shui. You see, the questions have become specific, focused, and no longer divergent but rather concentrated. It's like driving away from city lights and suddenly seeing a sky full of stars. Questions kept pouring in, filling notebooks. The student's perspective broadened, achieving the transition from a topic to specific questions. From this, we can learn how to define problems. Firstly, at the initial stage, remember to allow yourself to appear vulnerable. In the beginning stages of research, our lack of expertise isn't a flaw. When trying to appear mature and professional while asking questions, you might hesitate, worrying if your questions seem immature. However, at this stage, our questions don't need embellishments or coherence, they just need to be honest, specific, and match our knowledge level. Secondly, write down your thoughts. Ideas might come quickly, but if not recorded promptly, they'll soon be forgotten. Leaving traces of your thoughts might come in handy later. Lastly, generate questions from within. This is particularly important and often overlooked. When posing questions, remember, you must first establish a connection within yourself. Your questions should be driven by your knowledge, assumptions, and interests. Avoid trying to think from outside in, attempting to please hypothetical external judges. Because questions guide us towards a direction, toward specific answers, toward primary sources that can answer those questions, toward other scholars researching these questions, leading to more and better questions. Part 2, Transforming Topics into Questions marks the completion of the first step. The subsequent second step is more critical yet more challenging, analyzing and refining these questions. In essence, it means linking your questions and discovering the profound underlying force driving your research, the problem. A problem, often the starting point of your research, is a perplexity residing in your mind, persistently unsettling and intriguing you. For example, the Weber problem: why did capitalism emerge earliest in Europe rather than elsewhere? Such fundamental questions embody genuine problem consciousness. Questions like the Weber problem delve into the realm of global modernity, not explainable in a sentence or two. Furthermore, their answers are remarkably diverse. When discussing the Weber problem, we are, in essence, contemplating the nature of modern society. It's like the saying goes, the number of good answers awaiting a good question. Returning to my notebook, it's brimming with specific questions. The question is, how do I unearth the underlying problem? The author provides clear operational steps. The first step in discovering the problem is to diagnose and test your questions. This step ensures your questions are specific in vocabulary, grammar, and rhetoric, devoid of bias, avoiding assumptions about particular outcomes. How do you diagnose your questions? Look at the punctuation in your notebook. Do all your questions end with a question mark? Have you used overly broad and vague terms like, my research is an examination of flora and fauna, or, my research is about the relationship between modern nouns and verbs? These are topics masquerading as questions. Questions need to be more specific and punctuated with a question mark. Also, pay attention to adjectives and adverbs in your questions. Have you used phrases like modern, traditional, Western, which are overly broad, generic, imprecise, or generalizing adjectives? Have you included adverbs like scientifically, rationally, effectively? Erase them all. Lastly, consider collective nouns in your questions. Have you used terms like Asians, French people, students, women? If so, strive to replace them with more precise vocabulary. For example, what age group of women? Which students from what location? What backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses, races, family situations of the French people? You need to cover every variable influencing your research as much as possible. So, what qualifies as successfully diagnosed questions? Firstly, they are clear, precise, and avoid industry jargon. Secondly, they don't lean toward any particular outcome. Thirdly, they are raw. While theoretically encouraging precise questions, at this stage, your questions being refined and coherent is inconsequential. If these questions seem somewhat random, let them be. If they appear unrelated, maintain that unrelatedness. We've just discussed the first step in discovering the problem, diagnosing and testing your questions. Now, on to the second step, using keyword search methods to refine your questions. Through keyword searches, you'll acquire various primary materials. Some may be influential, others obscure, and some might even be incomplete. Nonetheless, these materials will lead you to explore further and contact information aiding in formulating more mature questions. In this process, note a critical issue. Suppose you're interested in the history of artificial intelligence. You've progressed from the initial topic to a series of specific questions and are currently gathering and exploring materials. You search an electronic database of historical periodicals and encounter a barrier. You realize that searching for the keyword artificial intelligence primarily yields data post the 1980s, with scarce information from before that era. Why is that? Research on artificial intelligence began way before the 1980s, why can't you find earlier information? The reason is straightforward. The keywords you used are pointing to a specific era. Meaning, the language you're using to describe this subject is how people at this time and place articulate it. However, in the past, they might not have used these terms. Artificial intelligence is a term we use today to describe a branch of computer science, not necessarily the term used by the scientists pioneering this field back then. They often used words like systems thinking, machine intelligence. So, at this initial stage of searching for primary materials, your primary goal isn't to start researching or finding answers. Instead, it's through these materials to discover new keywords you were previously unaware of. Then, use these words to unlock more data. Who knows, you might come up with more and better questions. The entire process of refining questions is quite fascinating. The more information we gather, the deeper our understanding of the subject of study becomes, and our intuitive sense about this topic strengthens. It's like riding in a taxi. If the car makes a loud noise, at most, we ask the driver, what's wrong with the car? But if we ride with an automotive engineer, and the car makes a loud noise, the engineer intuitively says, there seems to be an issue with the transmission, and then we earnestly listen to their explanation, our willingness to understand heightened. In essence, refining our questions allows us to focus on the real and valuable questions, discarding those naive inquiries. Moving on to the third step of discovering difficulties, bringing your assumptions to the surface. Now, while you can analyze your questions using the previous two methods, there's one more thing you need to do: uncover and candidly accept the assumptions concealed within your questions. When you're ideating topics or raising questions, your brain isn't a blank slate, it's filled with various assumptions. It's because of these assumptions that you notice specific details in certain materials. And it's these assumptions that create differences between your perceptions and the real world, prompting you to pose numerous specific research questions. In other words, your assumptions shape your expectations of the real world. In daily life, we often appreciate expressions like, "Do you think the Vikings were just savage raiders?" Of course not, let me tell you about their real way of life. Do you believe Japan is a homogeneous society? You're mistaken. Let's see what the true Japanese society is like. Such expressions are effective in dispelling misconceptions, grasping attention rapidly, and efficiently conveying highly certain knowledge. However, in scientific research, such expressions tend to somewhat stifle researchers' creativity. Remember our emphasis on being self-centered researchers. Being self-centered means letting assumptions surface on their own rather than artificially pushing them. So, to let assumptions surface on their own, we need to take these steps. A heads up, this part is practical but detailed. If you're interested in trying it out, you might want to revisit the manuscript for reinforcement. First, list the minor issues or events you've noticed and write down the assumptions you held when you first noticed them. Second, create a list of assumptions, listing all your assumptions about a specific issue, and categorize them as follows. Category A, assumptions you currently want to use. Category B, assumptions you want to discard immediately. Category C, assumptions you're uncertain or hesitant about. Third, for each assumption, write a brief explanation explaining why you categorized it into A, B, or C. Fourth, go back to your list of questions and find all those that contain Category A assumptions, i.e., the assumptions you currently want to use. Since you've assessed them and believe they can remain, these questions based on these assumptions are good to keep. For Category B assumptions, which you want to discard immediately, hold off on deciding promptly. If you find they're based on unconvincing, biased, or unfounded assumptions, try rephrasing them, perhaps the results might differ. As for questions built on Category C assumptions, they fall between two situations. You need to mark them to remind yourself to reevaluate them more thoroughly when the research goes deeper. The final action, create a hypothesis classification table for each of your questions. To help you better grasp this method, I've included the author's suggested hypothesis table in the manuscript for your reference, making it easier for you to click and view. After this series of actions, your assumptions are now emerging. The difficulty you've been ardently seeking is about to surface. So far, you've diagnosed and tested questions, refined questions, and brought assumptions to the surface, resulting in a multitude of factual questions related to your research project. Now, what you need to figure out is what ties these questions together into that one difficulty. Here are the steps. List all your questions without attempting to answer them. Instead, ask yourself, do these questions have a common focus? If so, what is that common focus? Then, step out of your own perspective and ponder what someone else might see as the underlying problem connecting these questions. Remember to jot down these considerations. But please note, advanced questions are usually more specific and profound, and they might not all be related. At this point, your task is to keep contemplating what the more abstract concept connecting two or more questions might be. At this stage, your difficulty is on the verge of emerging. Part 3, if you found your difficulty, congratulations, you've essentially got a good research topic. But as with many things, research is a systematic process. Developing a difficulty into a project requires not only logical thinking but also self-assessment and visualization. You need to know clearly, what pattern, what type of project suits you best. What do you envision as the final product? In their book, the authors offer numerous techniques. Due to time constraints, we'll focus on a critical aspect, one that often causes problems: evaluating your research resources. Project management is a considerable field of study. Having developed problem awareness and identified your own difficulty, don't rush into research straight away. There's much more to assess. You can ask yourself these questions: how much actual time do you have available for research? By when must this project be completed? How much funding does this work require? Do you have family responsibilities? How might they affect your research time? Can you easily access the necessary research materials? What skills does your research team possess? Do you have the necessary expertise to conduct this research? What's your personality like? Are you introverted or extroverted? Do you prefer collaborative research or solitary reading sessions? What's your risk tolerance? Researchers in war zones or volcanic areas often put their lives in danger. Are you equipped for such risky research? Evaluating these aspects isn't just about consolidating your resources and energy, it's also about identifying your limitations and adjusting them in time to avoid embarking on a project that might harm you. Please note, this is crucial. Once you've integrated your resources, energy, and time, you're prepared to kickstart your project. But there's a crucial step to successful research: getting into the circle, becoming part of the academic community. We often refer to the community of academic practitioners as the academic circle. Emphasizing that you should consider research as a socialized behavior, you need to use the common language within the circle, focus on topics of interest within the circle, and gain recognition within the academic community. Seize opportunities, engage sincerely and enthusiastically with peers, and get into the game. Lastly, if you want to elevate your research's impact and broaden its scope, don't confine yourself to a small circle. Your research shouldn't be understandable only to a select few. You need to make it visible to more people, make them understand the value of your research. How do you do that? This method is called finding and replacing all internal language. The approach is simple: print your manuscript and mark every instance of internal language, which includes technical terms, specific names of places or people, abbreviations, or events mentioned without detailed explanation. Then, do the following. For personal names, provide the full name with a brief bio. For professional organizations, be as specific as possible in your introduction. For technical jargon, replace it with descriptive language. If necessary, retain the original term but provide its definition. For events without explanations, briefly explain what happened and provide relevant context. For abbreviations, replace them with their full forms or provide a brief description. Now, you've identified all forms of internal language in your research and replaced them with language understandable to a layperson. You might even invite a non-expert to read it. Let them mark the sections they don't understand. You might be surprised, we're often so familiar with our manuscripts that we overlook many issues. Which words or phrases confuse them? Can they follow the logical flow of the article? Which parts puzzle them? Rewrite these sections until the meaning becomes very clear. This way, your presentation will be clearer, and you can be sure your research can be understood by more people and have a more significant impact. In conclusion, the main content and operational methods of Where Research Begins are introduced here. The book's preface contains this sentence: a researcher is one of the coolest identities in modern society because you explore the unknown, you produce knowledge. Research is a rare ability. Indeed, to thrive in modern society, it's worth considering some training in research. We don't all need to become researchers, but what we genuinely need is to reshape our way of thinking. When faced with complex issues, such as why we can't pass a certification or why our current job exhausts us, we won't resort to simple experiences. Instead, we'll use rational analysis and logical problem solving. A book or audiobook can't replace practical research training. I hope today's book provided insights into how researchers find research projects. Therefore, please apply the methods mentioned today to find a meaningful research topic for yourself and feel free to share the research topic you found in the comment section. That concludes today's sharing. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom and practice to achieve our financial goals and create a better future together. Thank you, and goodbye.